So, I'm thinking about these Russian indictments, the 13 people. I think another guy, some minor guy, was also charged today. And the left is trying to push this as a big deal. Now, it seems to me, obviously, I think it's a bad thing for the Russians to manipulate. It's against the law. They shouldn't manipulate our elections. But it just doesn't seem like a very big thing. And we know that no matter what they did, you can't really rig an American election. We have an expert on this. This is cut number 10.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections. There's no evidence that that has happened in the past, or that there are instances in which that will happen this time. And so I'd advise Mr. Trump to stop whining and go try to make his case to get votes.
What's funny is I put this in our cut sheets, in our sound sheet, and then Trump started tweeting it out. It was like he was reading my mind. He started tweeting this out. Now, just to go back and remind us that from the beginning, Hillary told us that it was awful. What did she say? It was, I can't remember the word she used. It was some horrible word, outrageous, dreadful, something. For Trump to say that he might not accept the outcome of the election because he felt the press was so much against him and he wanted to see how it went, and he knew the Democrats cheat, which they do. But Hillary said that's awful, and she swore she would accept the election results. It's cut 1.
Are you willing to accept the outcome as the will of the voters? Secretary Clinton?
Well, I support our democracy. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But I certainly will support the outcome of this election. And I know Donald's trying very hard to plant doubts about it, but I hope the people out there understand this election's really up to you. It's not about us so much as it is about you and your family.
And then after she lost and started hitting the Chardonnay, not so much, cut 2.
But I was on the way to winning until the combination of Jim Comey's letter on October 28th and Russian WikiLeaks raised doubts in the minds of people who were inclined to vote for me but got scared off. And the evidence for that intervening event is, I think, compelling, persuasive.
So now, I mean, what the point that I'm trying to make is the same point I was just making about Paul Krugman, is they will say anything, and they say it all the time. And the exceptional nature of Donald Trump, even though he is an outlandish, an outsized character who does a lot of things that people have not done in the office before, it is not, they have been screaming wolf all this time, and they will say anything. They will say anything. Here's a child. Let me hold up this child. Is it a dead child? I'll hold up a dead child. Jim Carrey was posting pictures of children who had been shot, to try and convince me. They will say anything. So now they come out and they indict these 13 guys, indictments that will never be proved. These people will never be tried. They're back safely in Russia. So it's just an indictment. But even the the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, is saying this did not affect the election. And he's saying there's no evidence so far. It's, obviously the investigation goes on. He says there's no evidence that Trump was involved. Just play that second clip of him.
Now, there is no allegation in this indictment that any American was a knowing participant in this illegal activity. There is no allegation in the indictment that the charged conduct altered the outcome of the 2016 election. I want to caution you that everyone charged with a crime is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in court.
Now I want you to look at, this is a beautiful, beautiful cut. This is absolutely perfect on how narrative is constructed. This is Karen Tumulty of the Washington Post talking to Brian Potato Head Stelter at CNN. And she goes over the top on describing this. And then Stelter says, oh boy, now you said this, and Fox News is going to attack you for it, as if the fact that it were Fox News immediately makes the attack irrelevant and not worthwhile. Just listen to the way this plays out.
You look at the president's tweets this morning and try to imagine if Franklin D. Roosevelt, after Pearl Harbor, had gotten on the radio and said that Tokyo was laughing at us, to use a little less crude phrase than he did. That is not what is called upon a president to do right now.
You know what's going to happen, though, Karen? Someone on Fox News is going to take what you just said. They're going to say, how dare you compare this to Pearl Harbor?
It is an attack on our country. It is an attack on our country with use of 21st century means. And it is definitely a national security threat, which is something that the commander-in-chief is supposed to be dealing with.
So it's like, don't tell the truth about us while we're busy lying. You know, it's like Tucker Carlson actually went out and said, this is absurd. And they said, it was just like Brian Stelter said. He called her out for calling it Pearl Harbor. She called it Pearl Harbor before he said it. She called it Pearl Harbor again after he said it. Fox News is right. And what Brian Stelter does and what they always do is they demonize the opposition. So it's Fox News. Fox News said it. Fox News said 2 and 2 is 4. Are you going to believe 2 and 2 is 4? Fox News said it. This is the way they construct narrative. And it's all about narrative with them. It's none of it is about the facts. So what are the Russians doing? What were the Russians doing? They were staging rallies for and against Donald Trump, for him when they thought he wasn't going to get elected, and for Bernie Sanders when they thought he wasn't going to get elected, just to undermine the woman they thought was going to get elected, Hillary. And after Trump got elected, they started staging rallies against Donald Trump. They just want to cause as much trouble as they can. Let's take a look at one of those rallies in New York, right? The thing is, the Russians were so incompetent, all they could get were like a couple of hundred people to show up for a rally against Donald Trump. I mean, after all, with the left ginning up everybody, you think thousands of people, but the Russians could only get a few hundred. But that's okay, because MSNBC and CNN were there to cover it with incredible sympathy. It was cut number 8.
NBC's Morgan Radford is at Union Square in New York City. That is where the anti-Trump protest is just about to kick off. And Morgan, with a good day to you, what's happening there right now?
Well, Alex, it's already started. In fact, you can see hundreds of people behind me here in Union Square. I want to show you some of the signs and the posters they're holding up here. You can see one here that says, "Acknowledge Trump's hate, protect our public schools, teachers against Trump." You see people that are really saying that this is the time for them to come together. They're trying to say they're being more inclusive, and that's because thousands of people, as you know, Alex, are feeling marginalized by President-elect Donald Trump's comments. And they said this is a love rally.
After they pointed in that direction, they yelled, "We're not going to be tolerating any sexism or homophobia or racism." And that is really the message. All of sort of these protesters coming together, frustrated, angry, and all directed at the president-elect.
Hey, Morgan, can you tell who has organized this rally? It has been suggested that so many of the protests across this country have been impromptu rallies. I mean, it's been supported by a very diverse array of constituents. Is there someone in charge here?
Right now, this is lots of different groups of people who have come together with no necessarily official leader.
Yeah, it was Boris Badenoch. It was Vladimir Putin was in charge. I mean, they're so sympathetic. What is the difference? Can you spot the difference between CNN, MSNBC, and Vladimir Putin? There's no space between them. And now we hear that Russian bots that they use to send out as much information as they can have immediately jumped on the gun debate and are immediately, trying to divide people on this very difficult issue, because there's emotions on both sides. There's powerful arguments. There's not that many powerful arguments for banning guns, but there are powerful arguments on both sides. And I just want to play this one cut, because as I usually don't pick on MSNBC because they're openly left-wing, and I think that's fair. It's CNN that pretends to be a news station, but is a left-wing propaganda outfit. It's NBC that pretends to be a news station, but is a left-wing propaganda outfit. Those are the guys I go after. But I just want to show you Chris Matthews coaching this kid on air to get him to say what he wants to say in order to manipulate your emotions.
You know what you're up against? The power of the gun lobby, the NRA. They want guns basically available to anyone, open carry in Florida. 18-year-old, you can buy an AR-15, an assault rifle. They basically want as free an availability as guns as possible in this universe, more free than anywhere in the world. They want to make it easy to get a gun and carry a gun and openly display it. They are all the way with this thing. You're up against that.
Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting how easy it is to access, these assault weapons. No other country in the world, it's not easy like it is in America. And of course, America has constant mass shootings. It seems to be like a daily thing now. But, you know, we know what we're up against. The NRA has consolidated a lot of power. They have a lot of politicians in their back pocket. But as long as politicians continue to get money from the NRA, we're going to vote them out. So they're going to get what's coming to them.
You know, my point is not that the Russians and the news media both have the same goals of spreading disinformation and discord. Oh, wait. That's exactly my point. I just want you to imagine for 1 minute, what if the New York Times really did have all the news that was fit to print? What if CNN really could be the most trusted name in news? What if after the debacle of their coverage of the Obama administration, this corrupt administration, their attempts to cover up Obamagate, his misuse of power, what if they reformed themselves? What if they started trying to tell the news straight up, both sides of opinion, all the facts they could get their hands on, just delivering the news as it came in instead of manipulating our emotions? The Russians would have no power. The Russians could come in here and spread disinformation all they wanted, but we would know that we could go to our news media and get trustworthy information. It's them. It is them. They are the ones who caused this problem. The Russians would be helpless if they weren't such corrupt liars.